because everything was so different back then, because All Shall Perish, Suicide Silence, all those bands, we all sounded different, but you could put us together and it kind of blended everything, and you'd be like, whoa, this is like a real full experience. But each band held like their own light, and I always really loved that about deathcore, but because it still does that to this day. Like, every band shines their own light, so everybody just respect it for what it is. You're gonna have bands you love, you're gonna have bands you don't love, but just respect it, because it's all under one family tree, and it's blooming, and it's awesome that everyone can express that way, you know?
Real quick before we start, I just wanted to mention that we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch. It's kind of a cool way for you guys to be a part of the conversation, as well as, you know, see the behind the scenes and the uncut versions of these episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribing, leaving a comment, liking the video, all that stuff goes a long way. Same goes for leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We have a striving community on Discord if you want to chat with other like-minded deathcore enjoyers, as well as just staying up to date with everything that's going on with the podcast. Last but not least, if you want to support the podcast, I'll be leaving a link down in the description wherever you are watching or listening on how you can do so, as well as links to everything else that I just talked about. With that out of the way, enjoy this episode. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Brutality Podcast. My name is Dom, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Yan. And this week, we have a very special guest. This is a guest that we've been looking forward to for a very long time. We booked this a little ways back, so we've been excited to get this one going. Tonight, we have the pleasure of talking to Jared, who's the original vocalist for Suffokate, but is now doing a bunch of music as well. So very excited to get into all of that. Jared, welcome to the show. How are we doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate you both very much. Big fan of the podcast and your guys' work. So just 3 things I got to start off with is thanking you guys for all you're doing. I see you guys and you guys are killing it, so keep doing that. Also, I want to thank my mom for always, supporting me with my vision, because before anyone did, she did. And she still does to this day. And also, rest in peace to my brother Carlos, who you guys also know from the Oakland album, who did the high vocals. If it wasn't for him, half of that wouldn't have been possible also. So most importantly, too, all the fans and supporters of not only Suffokate, but just deathcore in general. So thank you to everybody.
Very well said. Like, very well said. I love that.
Yeah,
and
man.
It's an honor to have you. Like, sorry, Dom, I don't want to.
No. Go for it. Man.
It's like people that know me, I kept talking about that era, you know what I mean? Like Oakland and stuff. Like I kind of shut up about it, even if I'm doing, I think I told you right recently that even to my producer, when I'm doing music, I kind of showed as an example Oakland. I'm like, but I need to aim that. So like it was such a big influence. Even when I was talking, we're going to get to that with in a bit, but Zach from Elysia was telling me about those days and playing shows with them and stuff. So like you guys were, key in creating deathcore and stuff like that. So it's like to have you now and to have more information on how it was for you personally and you guys recording the album. It's an honor for us. So really we appreciate you being here.
Thank you guys. That really means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Of course. I mean, how you've, before we kind of dive in, I mean, I'd love to maybe kind of tap into maybe some of the stuff you've been doing more recently. How's because you're still kicking it. You're still doing some music. You are putting out a new band as we speak. So talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff you've got going on right now. I'm kind of curious.
To start, the newest project I have is called Rise and Rebuild. And that's with actually me playing guitar, because before I did vocals in high school, started off as a guitar player. So that's always was like kind of a first love, even though I love vocals too. But like I started with the guitar, so it's always that special thing. So my good buddy Ray is doing vocals for the project. He also played bass in a band I was in called The Golden Knife in 2009. I got a funny story about that later on. But he's doing vocals. I'm doing guitar for that. and it's more like melodic hardcore stuff. I'm not going to say too much about it because I kind of want the music to speak for itself, but we should be recording, I'd say next month, have a single or two out maybe next month. So definitely go check out Rise and Rebuild. And shout out to my boy Ray on vocals because he's a phenomenal vocalist, and I'm excited for everyone to really get to hear what he's got to offer because he kills it. And then the band I do vocals for currently is called Buried in Destruction. And that's interesting because I guess technically it started 2003. It was like a first group of people, and it was two vocalists. So it was me and my boy Drew, who also did vocals. And then we had a drummer Chino, and then our boy John on guitar. And we did 3 songs, and it was sick. And time progressed, and they had other stuff going on in their lives, and they didn't want to hold it back. And then also the other vocalist, he's in a band called Murder Death Kill that just came back, so he's busy doing all his shows and stuff. So make sure you go check them out. And the drummer, Chino, he's the drummer for Count Time, and they're like a legendary hardcore band from LA. So go check them out as well. So they gave me the blessing, and they were like, Jared, just keep going with it with John. So at first I was kind of just seeing who else I could get, and then I locked in this drummer named Kendall from Southern California. So we had him, and then just yesterday we actually locked in a bass player. His name's Deuce, and yeah, we're locked in. So everyone's getting the songs all together because realistically, I met everybody like how you were saying you guys met from online. I met everyone from Buried in Destruction just from sending messages, just from the love of music. I messaged our guitar player John, and I said, I see that you're an incredible guitar player. He has a band called Descented. I said, I would love for you to play guitar in my band. I don't ever want to take anything away from your other band, but if you like what you hear, come join the team with me too when you can. And he heard it, and he was like, awesome, I'm down. So then moving forward, we have 2 newer songs. One's called Nitro, one's called End of All. And that's just me on vocals. And if you liked what I did before, Legacy of Pain, On a Warpath, Suffokate, The Golden Knife, whatever I've done, just check it out. I mean, you may hate it, you may love it, but just give it a listen, and we got some cool stuff on the way with that. So definitely follow Buried in Destruction. But that's the new stuff I'm working on.
So yeah, I think go for it.
Sorry, dude. You're kind of doing everything you want to do, right? Because with one project you can do your vocals, you got on the other one you do like your guitar. So it's not like if you would only do guitar, maybe you would miss doing vocals sometimes. So you have both, right now. So it's kind of best of both worlds, really.
And that was a hard thing for me too. As like I learned as I got older, is like the other guys from Suffokate. If you guys they'll have them on, they'll be like, he always had a fucking side project. Because I'm always want to create, and it would probably drive them crazy because like I'd have side projects that lasted for like a month. They'd come, they'd go, they'd be done, and we'd just be always creative. But nonetheless, now I've balanced it out to where it's like just put certain eggs in certain baskets and do certain things so you can express yourself with the guitar in one project, do vocals in the other, because it's just more comfortable that way. Like how you were saying, it kind of blends it all out for me, at least for doing it currently. Because back in the day with like Taylor, the original guitar player of Suffokate, and Lars, the original drummer of Suffokate, we would all be collaborating so much. So me and Lars could be in the studio. I'd have my guitar and he'd be on drums, and we'd start jamming, and then we come up with a cool idea. Or me and Taylor are together, and all of a sudden we got the Slaughter Your Enemies fucking riffs going, and we're like, oh shit. Call up Lars, like, get to the studio, like we got some shit we got to jam like, today.
Emergency
and,
meeting.
Like, yeah, like, we're like today practice today because we got some riffs going on. Like we need to practice. Sitting at Taylor's house, like, dude, going crazy. And then I can't forget the original.
It's sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but it stays in your head so much. Like every I hear it once during the week. The whole time after that, that's the only. I gotta be careful because sometimes it's in my head, and I'm about to write music, and I'm like, you can't, don't go there. Like, don't do that. Like that's something you like. Don't do it. But it's like that's when you know if you have like an amazing riff, right? If it stays in your. It stays there and it's catchy and it's behind you. So like you have to move and stuff, and you definitely capture that. And I'm guessing we're gonna get to that, right, Dom? Like we're gonna talk about the writing of the album because it's super interesting to us. But yeah, you killed it with that riff. Sorry, I know I cut you off, but it's like
no, you didn't. You're good, bro. You're good. I appreciate that. And I guess let's rewind it back to the beginning now. So Jared, it's like young Jared in high school, 2000. I like, there's no deathcore out, so there's not like deathcore I can listen to be inspired by. It's just like music. When I say music, I mean metal, hip hop, alternative, punk, whatever I could see, I was interested in. So I'd be watching TV. They had that TV show way back in the day. If you're old, it's called The Box, and you could call in and you would pay money, and you could request a music video. So whatever music video you don't want to watch, you could call in, you pay, and they'd play the video. Now I never called in to pay for the videos, but I would stay there and watch it with a blank videotape and record all the videos I liked. So when Manson came on, Korn came on, Sepultura, anything, Biohazard with Onyx doing Slam, I would be recording it, and it was just this collective of all this cool stuff to me. So like the more it progressed, I'm like, I want to see live music. So I start going to shows, and I'm going to this place in the Bay Area. It's called the 924 Gilman, and they had all types of like punk, hardcore, metal bands play there. I got to see tons of great bands there. I even got to see like Poison the Well play there. I got to see Unearth play there. And they just had like an EP out. I got to see some really sick bands. That was the era
for that, right? That's that style of metalcore specifically.
Yeah, I got killer band.
Yeah,
got to see them there, and it just like blowing my mind that I'm seeing all this different type of music. And like I said, across the board, I also love hip hop. I loved electronic music. So I'm just like, just love music. But I'm in high school thinking to myself, I want to do something, but I'm not sure what it is yet. Like I've already jammed, and I'm like doing guitar and bass in bands, and like I'm kind of looking at the microphone, but I'm not sure about it yet. You know what I mean? And I'm like, God, I kind of want to do the vocals, and like wind it back again. And this may be weird. I don't think it's weird. So the music video, I seen a Marilyn Manson's Sweet Dreams music video on TV, and I was like, holy shit, like this is insane. It was like heavy, it was bizarre, and it made me like realize you could really do whatever you wanted to musically as long as you had conviction behind it. Now granted, nothing I've done has sounded like that, even though it's one of my favorite artists, but it inspired me to be like, you know what, I think one of these times I'm actually will get on a microphone and do this. So we progress now further, see hardcore bands playing, I see metal bands playing, and now I'm really like, I have friends who play guitar, I have friends who play drums, and I'm like, it's kind of all coming together. I have a project with Taylor in high school that was before Suffokate, and I also had a project with Lars when he was out of high school, I was out of high school together, but I still wasn't doing vocals, and it was kind of like one day everything just came together. Me and Lars' old band, it went to shit, and so that day I was just like, hey, come play drums for this new band I got, which was Suffokate, and like, we'll make it happen. So we really locked. He was there like the first day it started. I'm like, we don't have it. We had someone who was going to jam, but it wasn't like that. But he's like, I want to do it. So like, all right, new band, Suffokate. We got Lars. We got Lars Diaz on drums. We got Taylor Jones on guitar. We got Nick Norton on bass. We got our original bass player, Patrick. I love you, bro, but I can't remember your last name. But Patrick's on bass and myself on vocals. And we're just a 5-piece band from Bay Area, Oakland area, just doing our thing. Like we're playing our shows, and like we're young, and like we're kind of learning as we're going. And like if you heard Destined to Fail, you can hear the elements of like what would be to come from Oakland, but it's like small bursts of it. You get that like Slaughter Your Enemies feeling, but it's a shorter burst of it, like in Russian Roulette and Souls and Lost Memories and such. So we play our first show at the Danville Grange, 2001. Now, give or take, I may be off a little bit on times. I made a timeline because I wanted to be as best as I could for you guys. But Danville Grange 2001, we do our first show. And it was fucking crazy. Like, people didn't really understand it. They just knew that we had breakdowns. And then we dropped more breakdowns, because that was the thing that me and Taylor always talked about. I'm like, I want to do something different. Like, blend everything together and like, make it feel, but everything makes you feel. The vocals, the bass, the guitars, the drums. Take any of those instruments isolated, and everyone's playing it with their whole heart and their whole soul, so you can really feel it. Like, sometimes people play and just play, but I can genuinely say that the whole time that I was there with them, we were literally playing from our core, like playing from our deeper than our souls. But we do our first show. We recorded a demo version of Russian Roulette, and that's with the lineup of myself, Lars, Taylor, Nick Norton, and Patrick. But Patrick's from Brazil originally. So one day he tells me, I got to go home. And we're like, oh, fuck, what are we going to do? But weird how this music stuff ties in, and that's why I'm going to keep going back to it. It all ties in. It's really weird. I met this guy named Marco at our first show. And this guy was like beating people's asses when we were playing. Like, he was the one who felt it the most. And that's my brother. I love him to death. And I mean, he was going crazy. And I'm like doing my thing, but I'm like watching this kid. And I'm just like, man, if that's invoking this in him and he gets it now, and we're like in this infant stage, I can only imagine what it would be like down the line. So show's done. I go outside. I'm by my car. I hadn't made it. They'll tell you I used to make demo CDs. I'd cut them out. I'd burn the CD. I'd write on it. I like love the whole process of it. Mm-hmm. So I had a big old stack, and he comes up and he's like, "What's up? My name's Marco." I'm like, "My name's Jared." And he's like, I want some CDs. And I give him like 2 of them, and he's like, "I need more of them." I'm like, "Hell yeah." He's like, "I want to help spread the word."
Right. I was like, what are you going to do with them, brother?
Yeah, I'm like, hell yeah. Give him a big old stack. And some other kids come up, and they're like, about to engage as well, and Marco just has me locked in. He's like, I got to give you my phone number, and it's like not cell phone time, so he's like writing his number down on paper for me, like, hit me up sometime, we'll link up. And that's still my brother to this day. He's probably tuned in right now, so shout out to Marco. But he became the second bass player for Suffokate, because I'm like, bro, I need a bass player, like what the hell am I gonna do? And he's like, I can play bass. And the great thing about that was Marco would go up there, play bass, but then at the same time, if he didn't know a song, he'd put the bass down and just jump in the crowd and just dance on everybody. And not just like a section. I mean, like, there's a video I have on my Instagram, and you can see a taste of what Marco does in crowds. He just takes on everyone, and it's not a personal thing. It's just, man, he just dances the hardest of everyone I've ever met. And he taught me how to do what I do when it came to pit dancing, which is a blessing and a curse, I'm sure. But no, shout out to Marco. And then I'll rewind it back again to, we got the first show, obviously Taylor Jones, guitar player, incredible guitar player. I've known him since high school, and he's always just has this musical ear that's just like mind blowing to me. Cause like, I can come up with some cool riffs, but I give him to Taylor and he puts them through his mind. And then he comes back and he's got he's just got the section, he's got the transition. He can tell you how he wants the cymbals, no right cymbal high. He can communicate it perfectly. And I loved him for it, and I always got to give him credit for that. So shout out to you, Taylor, because you're one of the best guitar players out there to do it, no matter what anyone will ever say. In my eyes, bro, you fucking kill it. And then we transferred to Lars, man. That guy was such a badass drummer. And a funny story about that is, because music is weird, I went to a music camp when I was like young, and Lars was there. And I ended up being at his house, and he had a videotape, and it said the name of the music camp we were at. And I'm like, you were here this year? I was here this year. And then we kind of remembered, and we were like, oh, wow. So fast forward, I meet Lars. I had a friend from high school, and she's like, I know this dope drummer. You got to meet him. 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 And so finally we link up. I meet Lars, and obviously we click because we just clicked on everything. He loves music. No one plays drums like that. He hits so hard, and he plays with so much soul and groove that, like, when those breakdowns hit, he makes them hit. Mm-hmm. And Lars always does that. The fills, always unique, always his own. They didn't sound like everybody else's. He had his own style of completely bouncy of doing the drums. Like, yeah, that bounce has that tribal bounce to it. It really gets you fucking going. And I gotta shout out to him. If he hears this, man, you're the fucking dopest at doing those drums, bro. Like, you killed it. And so now we got Nick Norton. He was there. He did his thing, but eventually after high school, he moved to Japan. And he does stuff on TV out there. You have to research it more to see exactly what it is. But he went out there to Japan and he did his thing. And shout out to him, because he also had those ideas that we throw to me and Taylor and Lars that we could really build off to make those Destined to Fail songs. Because without Destined to Fail, which we did in 2003, so now we got 2001 to 2003, and I'll fill some stuff in. And forgive me, chat, and you guys, I'm bouncing around, but if you listen back to this, it'll all make sense.
Dude, we're there for that.
I absolutely love this for what it's worth. So you're
perfect.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm watching, like in my mind is just like I'm super kind of imaginative and creative. So like I'm watching a movie right now as you're describing it, and I'm loving it. We both really love that, and I know our community loves that. That's the reason why everybody's just listening right now. It's awesome.
I appreciate
honestly.
that. No, like I said, I made a timeline for you guys because I wanted it to be right, because I appreciate what both you guys do and everybody in the chat as well. I'm stoked that you guys are here.
Guys, anyone listening, for context, we booked this about a month and a half ago, and we had some dates open for relatively soon when we were booking this. But he specifically asked to do it at a later date so he could put this timeline together and go back down memory lane prior to doing this. So,
and just to give a little context, like I didn't even realize I was talking to you specifically. Like when you messaged me at first, I'm like, oh, you seem like a good. And then I realized I'm like, oh my god, this is Jared from Oakland. Like I didn't realize I were just talking. I'm like, oh, that person's nice. And then I was just like, what the hell? So like you say you appreciate us, but like we appreciate you too, man. It's truly, it's awesome. And I know like you're having a blast too, but it's amazing to listen to you and going back during those days. That's what we love specifically, right? We're here for that. So it's awesome, dude. We appreciate the preparation before, it's
Definitely.
awesome.
Only the best for you guys, man. Only the best. So we got Marco's in the band. We're doing our thing. But the thing with Suffokate is we went through bassists and guitar players like crazy. And I'm going to try to give everyone a little spot to recognize them. And disclaimer, if I forgot somebody, you were still important for the parts you played. But there was a lot of people. And I know someone's going to be like, what the fuck, Jay? You forgot about me. I'm sorry in advance. I did my best. All right, so like I said, we're like 5-piece band. It's just me on vocals, and Marco has life going on. When I say Marco does everything. I mean, mechanic, tattoo artist, street fighter, bass player. Marco did it all. So he's like, man, mosher. Professional mosher. He's like, I got too much going on. I can't commit like you want me to. I'm like, I understand. So we progress, and we end up finding. And now this is where it gets tricky. We get a guy named Nick, and Nick was from San Francisco because me and Lars' old band, we practiced in San Francisco. So this guy was there. He happened to hear that me and Lars were looking for a bassist, and we kind of link up. We're like, oh, he's like, I got a room. So then we ended up moving and sharing rooms because he had a different, like more kind of new metal band that he played bass in or played guitar in. And we're doing their thing there. So now we share rooms with them. So we got that band and then Suffokate in this room together in a practice studio in San Francisco. And unfortunately, Nick Norton's already left. Marco's gone. So you got Lars, me, Nick on bass, myself on vocals, and kind of rebuilding as we go. So along this time period between 2003, 2004, I mean, we're playing shows. Obviously, when we started, we're playing smaller shows. We're playing Sacramento, Central Valley, move our way down to Southern California, but we'll get there because that's more when it picks up, when I got to link up with like Suicide Silence, Winds of Plague, all the classic OG Titans. I knew them, and they were fucking killing it way back then. I got some dope stories about that. Also, before I forget, RIP to Mitch. That's the GOAT. That's the best to do it on the vocals for deathcore. So much love to him because that was the homie for sure. But locking back into everything, I'm trying to rebuild the project. Not rebuild, but we're trying to find the members. So we got this guy Nick on bass. And he's sick. He was doing his thing, but he's a guitar player for his band. So it was Oa's second. And I kept telling him, like, are you want to invest? And I'd see like the glow he'd have with his band, and then like we'd be doing it, and he loved the vibe, and he loves the shows, and he loves everything that's going on, but his band was his band. So I kind of was like, we're gonna have to find a new bassist. So now I'm thinking I need a bassist, I need a second guitarist. But through Nick, I meet this guy named Carlos, and anybody who knows me, I smoke a lot of weed. I used to smoke a lot of weed. I still smoke a lot of weed. I smoke a lot of weed. It's just what I do. And I meet Carlos, and he's like, hey, do you want to smoke a blunt? And I'm like, yeah. So we smoke a blunt. He's like, man, how do you do that with your voice? Because like he wasn't doing music at that time. Like he made beats on Fruity Loops, like hip hop beats. I found out later on, but like he was Nick's friend, so he's just at the studio, like chilling, smoking. We're hanging out, doing anything. He's asking, and I could tell he had interest. He'd always asking him, "How do you do that, man? You think I could be able to do that? Yo, sometime you got to come to my house and show me how to do something like that." So eventually, one day comes and like, keep that there. We got Carlos in the mix. We also locked Chris Story.
Yes.
You know, All Shall Perish is back. Congrats to All Shall Perish. Those are the homies as well. And love to Chris Story because that guy is another insane guy through music. So okay, we're coming back to Carlos, but we're gonna switch over to Chris Story. Me and Taylor are walking in Berkeley. We walk past this. How am I gonna say this right? I don't want to give anything too much away. You know what I mean? I want to say this right for all of. Okay, so we walk past this big house. It looks like a big house, and there's a whole bunch of people that live there. And I walk by, and this guy's like, Jared, and I look up the stairs, and it's Craig. Now, Craig is the original singer of All Shall Perish. All Shall Perish. He was on the Hate Malice Revenge album. Incredible vocalist. He also actually did guest vocals on Unscarred on the Oakland album when we did that back in the day. So I hear it, and I knew them from their previous project. So I hear Jared, and it's Craig. So me and Taylor go up there. We're talking to Craig, and we hear this guitar playing coming from somewhere, like up the stairs somewhere. And I mean, like, it's just going, like, going. I'm like talking to Craig. I'm like, who's up there? He's like, oh, this is Kid Chris. And I'm like, can we meet him? You know, I'm like, can we meet him? He's like, yeah, let's go upstairs. He's like in this small room. I'm like, hi, I'm Jerry. He's like, hi, I'm Chris. Taylor's like, Taylor, Chris. And he's just playing his guitar, whole conversation, guitar in hand, talking to us, playing the guitar, talking, exchange information, and he ended up being interested. So I'm like, dude, come play guitar with us. So now we got Lars, Taylor, myself, Chris Story, Carlos, and we really need a bass player because the Nick guy wasn't working out. So once again, through music, there's a band called Antagony from the Bay Area.
Oh yeah.
And super sick band. Shout out to them. And they had a bass player named Bray. So I had talked to Bray, and Bray's a sick bass player, like slaps. Like, again, no one plays bass like him because he's slapping and he's pulling and he's like going like Les Claypool style, but heavy style in his own way. And like, it still trips me out to this day because I've never heard anybody play bass like that. It's incredible. So shout out to you, Bray. And he really locked it in. He's super smart with like the programming and the designing and all that.
His name was all over the website. That's all I could see his name everywhere on the website, doing all the adding photos and adding the widgets and updating the stuff.
He loved it. He was good at it and proud of it, and I appreciate him. And like, he knows it's all love because sometimes me and him butted heads back in the day. But like I said, when I was young and like had a vision, I was young and I was like a hothead. Me and Marco were hotheads, and so it's like balancing that and then trying to have this relationship where it's like I was the oldest one of the team, so I'm kind of like a dad to it, but not trying to be a dad to it because everyone was equal. And I always stated that no matter what, doesn't matter if someone comes in the band and they're new, treat everybody like exactly the same because otherwise the dynamic's going to get all fucked up. So we're doing that. We lock it in. We start doing Oakland. Me, Taylor, and Lars already had some songs like Slaughter Your Enemies, Unscarred, already like locked in. So then we continued on with the rest of that album, and it obviously picked up in a bigger feel because everybody who joined kind of understood and had already seen through like us playing all our local shows and shit getting crazy, like what we were all about. So they kind of knew how to fill their spots and really like just bloom. So now it comes time, 2004. We've already okay, let's go back a little bit more. End of 2003, beginning of 2004, we go to Castle Ultimate Studios with Zach Warren in Oakland, and we went to record there because
All Shall Perish too, right? Yeah.
Yep. All Shall Perish recorded there. Animosity recorded there. Shout out to Animosity. so many great bands recorded there with Passion from Sacramento.
That was early Zach Oren too, right? Like he was kind of like in his beginning stages of doing producing and stuff like that. And it already sounded like great, but he was like the go-to guy for that kind of scene, right?
If I get it right, he's part of the reason why I love that song. That sound on Oakland, he's definitely part of the reason why it sounds so good.
Hell yeah. Shout out to Zach Oren, because that was my first time going into a real recording studio. And this is the funny thing is I didn't know that I was supposed to like do my vocals in like sections. So every time you hear Oakland, I start the song, I sing it straight through, and that was my take. I didn't do it in sections. I'm just hitting one song, and he's like, solid, done. Crazy. And I'm just like hitting them, and he's like, I practice it at home. I practice it with the guys. I had it so locked in. But the trippy part of when we were recording Vocal Day, I got half the song. I did all my vocals in one day for that album. And then I had Carlos there who had to do his. And I also had to drive from Oakland to Berkeley to pick up Craig from that same house that I met Chris at and drive him to the studio to do his guest vocal parts, then drive him back to the spot, and then drive back to the studio. Well, now I'm telling Carlos, do the vocals by yourself. Don't let me down. And he's like, you're going to leave? And I'm like, bro, I got to take him back. He's got stuff to do. And he's like, all right, I got it. He had all his lyrics. And I mean, I highlighted it. He knew what to do. I was confident. Like, he could have done it. So he goes, he's killing it. I come back, I hear it. Phenomenal. I'm like, okay, vocals are done. And again, everybody from the Oakland time, I do apologize that I didn't let everybody stay in the studio when we were recording vocals, but I just kept it me, Carlos, and Zach, because I just wanted it to be intimate, and I knew that we could be able to lock in how we really needed to for releasing those vocals if it was just us, because their energy was still with us while we were there. It was just with too many eyes there.
Yeah,
it was hard to summon that.
I get it though, because you need to hyper focus, especially you said you did like one take type of thing, like you have to be 100%.
You don't want to get checked by someone doing something goofy in the side, like halfway through, like
no,
someone standing in the room coughing, like when you're doing a perfect vocal take, and you'd be like, fuck.
No, or like something like they're laughing, you know what I mean, like doing something else, and you're just
someone opens the door is the classic. You're like,
I would have lost it. How I had me at the time, I would have lost it. They knew I was like, I'm gonna go in there, and as soon as he says go, it's like when you know you're gonna hit a home run. It's like just hitting that ball as hard as I fucking could every single track, and I was exhausted by the end of the day.
Yeah,
but the outcome was amazing because we did it in, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 3 or 4 days, not more than a week.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and now it's drums, 2 guitar tracks, bass, double vocals, and then he mixed and mastered it, and we released it ourselves in 2004, and we're doing our thing. Shows are cooler, and now we're going to Southern California more, and I've met like the Suicide Silence guys and fucking Winds of Plague and
correct me. Sorry to cut you off, Jared, but like, if I'm correct, Suicide Silence during that era was in the demo era with the Family Guy soundtrack type thing. I think that was the era. Okay, cool. Awesome. I just wanted to,
And I remember seeing them for the first time at Showcase, and like they go on, and like, obviously I'd listen to them on like MySpace and stuff, because like I knew that they had their hype going about them, because like I said, I love music. So it's everything that was going on remotely close, because everything was so different back then, because All Shall Perish, Suicide Silence, all those bands, we all sounded different, but you could put us together and it kind of blended everything, and you'd be like, whoa, this is like a real full experience. But each band held like their own light, and I always really loved that about deathcore, but because it still does that to this day. Like every band shines their own light, so everybody just respect it for what it is. You're going to have bands you love, you're going to have bands you don't love, but just respect it, because it's all under one family tree, and it's blooming, and it's awesome that everyone can express that way,
Especially early on, everyone was just doing like you said earlier, you weren't listening to deathcore. That's the main difference with deathcore now, right? Because now it's people reference deathcore when they're writing deathcore, but from back then it was like people were doing deathcore, but it wasn't even really a word, and like everyone's influences. Sometimes it was way more hardcore, like you guys. Sometimes way more death metal. Like it came from different places, so that really helped for it to be like really everyone had their own thing because there was no like plan. There was no like, you know, gimmick or whatever. It was just like everyone doing their thing. Yeah.
Each one had their personality type thing. Like it's a special thing, you know, like, and I always saw you guys as the hardcore of deathcore. I don't know how to explain it, but like you had the hardcore beat down like type, and very early, not many people were doing that. Like I always saw you guys as the hardcore without even seeing the show. You can tell that it's going to be violent and it's going to be something like there was the hardcore energy. Definitely. I don't know if you guys were looking at yourself like that, like being aware of like the hardcore energy, but it felt like that to me. Definitely.
You're 100% right. And I remember because we came from like playing hardcore shows first. Like we started off playing hardcore shows. So everything I would go to before was like either hardcore shows, metal shows, and like a blend, but I really loved the hardcore. And I would see a lot of bands, and I'm going to jump into some of those now. Like I'd see bands like Powerhouse, Doomsday Device, Low Life from Oakland, Pains Asleep, and then you got Hoods from Sacramento, and all these heavy ass fucking hardcore bands. And it was something that, like, as soon as I felt it, I was like, I really, really wanted to embody that feeling that it gave me, but still be able to express all this other style of music, because I always wanted to do something different. So I can definitely see, because we came from those hardcore shows and then started playing more metal shows and hardcore shows. And like you were saying, it's before there was the deathcore term. So it was like some shows, like we got to play like Faceless, Suffokate, and some other sick ass bands. And it's like, it was just like a metal show to us because it wasn't a hardcore show. But I look back at it now and I'm like, holy shit. Like I think, what was it? Suffokate, Antagony, The Taste of Blood, Suicide Silence, and All Shall Perish in Oakland at the Slaughterhouse back in the day.
Crazy.
And I mean, everyone's original lineups, this place is like a legit slaughterhouse. Like they slide the door open, you come in, they slide it closed, and now you're like in some industrial type of rooms. And it was wild, man. Bay Area always had awesome places. Everywhere it does, but especially Bay Area played some really cool, interesting places. But then we'll go back to the showcase. I see Suicide Silence for the first time finally, and they go on stage and like they start playing. Obviously, I'm blown away. Obviously, I've already hit the merch table. I got the demo in my backpack. It's back in the van because I'm not missing out, man. That shit's too fucking heavy. And then Mitch starts doing his thing, and you got Chris on guitar just going crazy. Original lineup just going nuts, and Mitch just had those vocals that even back then, like I said, my boy Marco taught me how to dance. So I'm out of town, Southern California, Suicide Silence is playing. Don't know any of these people. You know I'm going crazy. I got to do what Marco would want me to do, so I'm going in there going fucking crazy. And I remember afterwards talking to him, and they were like, "Oh, we want to come up to Northern California." So I'm cool. Get Suffokate, get Suicide Silence. They came up and played the Danville Grange, and this is back in the day as well, same time demo era. And like kids from the Danville Grange, they were used to heavy, but the kids who were there that night, I mean, we were sold cool amounts of merch for being small bands because we didn't have much merch back then because we were just these young bands doing it. It kind of, you learned as you went with it. And granted, by the time I left in like 2008-ish, 2007-ish, we had the merch going and we understood much more of how the business went. But back then it was just like cool bands, fun bands, dancing. And shout out to my boy Tim through music once again. My boy Tim, he's from the Central Valley. He's been in such bands like Pelter Road Massacre, Before I Wake. He currently sings in a band called Your Own Destroyer. They just dropped a new song, so definitely check them out. And he was also with me in a band that I was in 2009 with Ray, who's in my new band, Rise and Rebuild. And we were called the Golden Knife. So me and Tim were doing vocals then, but rewind the time, he was in a band called Before I Wake, and he got us, Suffokate, Suicide Silence, and Before I Wake to play the side of like a kitchen, a deli kitchen. I mean, like where they would chop meat and stuff. And like, it's just long. It's like a long hallway, and like you're playing and people are like running right in front of you. They're jumping on the little meat chopping table and jumping off. That's what Tim's doing. And it was wild, but it's like, it's fucking Before I Wake, it's Suicide Silence, it's Suffocating. Like, it was just a good time because that's where it was. And like, there were so many sick shows like that I got to play, and also that I would just always be going to shows because if we weren't playing them, we would always be going to them. So blown away by Suicide Silence. Already locked in with All Shall Perish back home. Locked in with Animosity. Also another great band from SoCal. If you guys haven't gone back and listened to, they're called The Final Burden. Have you guys heard them?
I don't think, but a name rings something though.
Fuck. Check them out. They killed it so hard back in the day, and they were another band that, like, for sure, if they would have for sure kept going, like, music just as sick as everything else, and it's crushing. Vocal is crushing, music just punishing. So shout out to them. And there were so many sick bands, and I just loved it. And then, so we progress on now. Oakland comes out.
Was Chris doing both at the time? Like, was he doing All Shall Perish too? Like, what's the? Did he leave eventually? Maybe it's later in the story, but I'm just like, because you were talking about Chris, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna come up down the line a little bit.
Okay,
cool. Chris's departure. So we're doing Oakland. It's out as just a independent release. Like, we got it pressed. We're playing shows. We're touring around doing our thing. And then All Shall Perish, they had lost their vocalist. And then another interesting story through music. Craig leaves All Shall Perish, and at the time, I was really locked in with him as well. So me and then Eddie, who you guys know from Suicide Silence, All Shall Perish, he was in a sick band back in the day. They hit up both of us, and they're like, come just fill in vocals for us. So I filled in for All Shall Perish for a couple of shows out here in Sacramento, and then Eddie did the one in Oakland at iMusicCast. And then I loved all those guys, but it's one of those things where it's like, for me, it was like Suffokate was like my heart and my seed, no matter what, through and through. Even to this day, and I'll do more explaining of that once we get to it. It's like you can always love something, no matter if it's right in front of your face or if it's 1,000 miles away. You can always love it, and that's up to you to do within yourself. So we're doing our thing. We're locking it in, and I'm sticking more with Suffokate. Eddie, obviously, phenomenal vocalist. Shout out to Eddie. All Shall Perish is back. Fucking sick. He kills it in Suicide Silence. Fucking sick. He was killing it back then, so he locked it in. And they had shown me the pre-production version of like Eradication. You guys familiar with that off the Price of Existence?
Yep.
And that's fucking sick. And I hear some guitars on it, and I'm like, damn. Why does that sound like something?
Okay.
I'm like, damn, what the fuck? I'm like, am I tripping? And I'm like, nah, but I'm not one to pry, because if you're my friend, you're just going to tell me. You're going to be a straight shooter. You're just going to tell me. I love you, Chris. Regardless, he knows that. I was talking to him just a couple of weeks ago. I love Chris. I'm proud of him. So now we're here, and I'm like, damn, I'm hearing, I'm kind of like, Okay, now we pressed our own merchandise. So when we weren't doing shows, we're at Bray's spot. We're pressing the merchandise, the shirts. We're putting them in the oven. We're doing hundreds of those shirts on our own. And one day we're there. I started to hear some guitar playing, because I wasn't supposed to be out making merch that day, but I was around, so I was like, I'm just going to go out and help out, because I didn't want to do it like later on in the week. And then me and Bray are kind of like, and I'm like, what the? And because the place it was at, Bray lived with one of the guitar players from All Shall Perish. They had a house that they each had their room. So here are the guitars. Long story short, I go inside. It's Chris. I'm like, what are you doing in here playing guitar? Like, come on, man. Like, let's make these fucking shirts. And then I kind of put two and two together. It's like when you see something and you just know, you're like, damn, like I'm like, damn, like he's gonna do All Shall Perish, and I really need to find like another guitar player. But it hasn't come down to him saying like, I'm gonna leave, or I'm gonna this, I'm gonna that.
Yeah, but you found your girl cheating, you know.
I'm like, damn, my heart hurts, but I'm like, fuck, I got to keep it trucking. You got to keep it thugging. You know what I mean? Keep it pushing. So we go back, make the shirts, and it's driving me fucking crazy. Now we're in cell phone time. I bust out my cell phone. I call Carlos, and I'm like, bro, I'm driving over to your spot. When I get out of here, like, I gotta tell you something. Now, shout out to Carlos, because he could always keep me super calm, but he could also get me hyped up too. But he was mostly best at keeping me calm, so I love him, and rest in peace to him again. I call him and I tell him, and he's like, what? And I'm like, oh shit. He's like, nah, man, that's not right. He needs to let us know tonight. So, long story short, I'm not getting into super details. Me and Carlos ended up driving to Chris's house. It's like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. I'm like knocking on his door. I love you, Chris, and you know it's all love. We're knocking on his door, and I'm just trying to find out. And then finally we talk. He's like, yeah, he's doing All Shall Perish. Me and Carlos leave. We're like, for sure. Lars knows, everybody knows, but we got to continue on. So now, this is where it becomes the blend. I'm going to shout out a whole bunch of people at once because they were all there at the same time. So we'll start with Ash. Shout out to Ash, who played guitar. He was on The Skies Were Filled with Fire. He was also on some of the re-recorded versions we did of These Eyes Will Watch You Die and the song 5 Years, the last song that I was on with them. Also on those recordings, we had John Foster, who is a guitar player, and he's a phenomenal guitar player. And both Ash is awesome, really good. He brought that black metal influence to the later on in the songs, really kind of opened our eyes to that. John Foster had that heavy groove metal feel and was really able to just like latch into that old school Suffokate sound as well. We also had Kaysen, who was previously from All Shall Perish, with us for a little bit, and he definitely brought his sound because he was a great guitar player as well. And then we also, through this time period, had a guitar player named Nicole, and she's an incredible guitar player, still is, and just had these pockets of guitar players, 3 guitar players at one time when we did The Skies Are Filled with Fire. So it's like we kept it moving, but now we go back, and Chris is gone. All Shall Perish. Time came where I'm not going to get too deep into personals of everyone because, like I said, I'm just speaking for myself with you guys. I would love for you, Taylor, to come on here. I would love for you to get Lars to come on here so they could tell their stories as well because I'm sure they're incredible. But time came and the majority rules vote. We had a thing with majority rules in the band. So if one person wanted something but everyone else didn't want it, didn't matter. We had this agreement. It was like a blood pact almost. Like we had these things where we were so locked in with each other. And I appreciate him now. And so we're talking, and then the general idea is that we're gonna part ways with Carlos, which is devastating to me because that's one of my fucking closest friends. But I'm like, I'll have to be the one to tell him if that's what it is because I got to keep it real if that's what it's gonna be. So I'm like, I'm literally gonna have to go tell the person now who I taught how to do vocals. Now let's pause there. So keep this in mind, everybody listening in the chat. This is somebody who, back in the day when we were doing right before Oakland, 2004, he's just around the studio just showing love. There was a point in time when we didn't have a bass player, and we were like, fuck, what are we going to do for the rent for the thing? Like, we were short on that end because the bass player just quit. And Carlos is like, here's my half of rent. I'm like, but you're not even in the band. He's like, but I'm always here chilling, so I'll just cover it. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he was just always down. So from that, I was like, wow. Later on, I go to his house and I'm showing him, like I said, I don't know how I do vocals because I feel like how I do it is weird and it may not even be the right or perfect way, but it's like, for me, it's like I'm channeling something. And you can see how like very calm, chill, relaxed talking to you guys. But if you guys ever seen videos back in the day, it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type shit. It's crazy. It's like whatever you hear when you don't see me and you're just listening to it, whatever that is, it's like channeled and coming out. And it's one of the best feelings and one of the craziest feelings as well.
It's awakening something in you.
And that comes with the lyrics too. It's like the ideas would come at weird times, but it's like how Taylor would say, like a channel opens and you're just like fed either the inspiration or the creation ideas and it comes forward. So we're doing it. But pause. We separated with Carlos. It sucked. It was hard. And we ended up being cool. Like obviously he was fucking pissed at all of us. He was pissed at me and everybody else in the band. Obviously he loved it. He put his heart into it and he put so much work into it with me, promoting it online, driving to the shows, doing so much. And those high vocals, I love them because I was always imagined Suffokate as a two vocalist band. Like even when I was doing the Destined to Fail stuff, in my mind I was still building the project in my head because I'm like, I would love two singers because it would just sound so cool, but it would have to be the right person. So now it's back to just me being on vocals. So I'm getting reacclimated to that. We're still playing shows. We re-record some stuff, and then we record the Skies Are Filled with Fire. And we got to go back a little bit. So we're gonna go back a little bit. So 2004, Oakland self-released is out. We're doing all that, but again, I love solo projects. Not solo projects, side projects. Forgive me. I love side projects. I tell Taylor one day, man, let's do something new. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's just start something new, like a new band, and kind of take the same seed, but just put it in a different garden, water it, and just see what happens. We can always come back to Suffokate, but let's just see what happens. And he's like, all right. And I go to Lars. I'm like, hey man, let's try something new. And he's like, all right. So then Legacy of Pain is formed. So we got Lars on drums, Taylor on guitar, myself on vocals. And at first we're just a three-piece. And we record with a guy named Sam Pura, who we also recorded The Skies Are Filled with Fire with. And we dropped C tuning for the first time we recorded the single. We record the song, put it up on MySpace. It does really, really good. We get a message, and it's from Jamie Josta. And I'm like, I see the message, and I'm like a big Hatebreed fan. Like, I love Hatebreed. So when I see the message, I'm instantly like, what the hell? And I click on it. And before I'm even like fully reading it, Lars calling me like, did you see the message? Did you see the message? And I'm like, damn. And he's like really interested. Like, I want to put something out with you guys. And I'm like, off a single? And I'm like, hell yeah, this is sick. And it was like the new band. So it made me really happy because they weren't 100% wanting to do the Legacy of Pain at first. Once it realized, I'm just like, we're just creating in another garden. It doesn't take away from Suffokate at all. Let's just try this other thing and see what happens. And it blossomed really quick. So granted, now we're going to write more songs. We got an EP we're going to put together. We're like, we need another guitar player. And this is where it all weird. That music is so weird. This is a Craigslist. The Craigslist ad of guitar players. And I don't know how he found it. We posted an ad. It was like on a Craigslist or something. Because like I said, we post them everywhere. Ryan replies to it. Ryan was also in Carnifex after Legacy of Pain. Incredible guitar player. We get Ryan on guitar, and he was from more closer to SoCal, but he moved up to the Bay Area. And then we get my boy Zach, who was in a band called Vivisection, on bass. So now Legacy of Pain is complete. Lars, Taylor, Zach, Ryan, and myself. We recorded the EP and sent it off to Stillborn Records, and we're out doing our thing. And we did a couple short tours. Shout out to my boy Tim. He was there with us, and we had a bunch of fun. But it was, once again, I knew Lars's heart is Suffokate to the max. Anybody who knows him knows that. It's like his heart is that to the max. And I always give him a lot of credit for that. And I could tell that even though we were enjoying it, we'd be playing the shows. Like we played the Whiskey, and then some Legacy of Pain, and then someone's like, play a Suffokate song. And we would, but it made the other members kind of feel like, and I'm thinking in my mind, and I'm telling you guys this because it's a good conversation and whatnot. In my mind, I'm thinking, why not just keep these guys and continue on to Suffokate? Because we could take Oakland, what we did, they can learn these songs. We have this lineup. We're touring with Legacy of Pain. We can fuse it all together. Continue on to Suffokate, play some Legacy of Pain songs,
all that, yeah.
Right. And I'm like, but it's one of those things where everything is like, I was younger and I didn't present it to him like that because I could already kind of tell where everyone's heart was. So we did this last Legacy of Pain tour, and then we had a record release show one day. Sick record release show. Arsonist Girl, the Girls also played that, and a whole bunch of other sick bands. So we go, oh, it's our record release show. Come by our EP. Come see us tomorrow in Sacramento. it's our last show. So we had our record release show one day, our last show the next day. And then after that, no more Legacy of Pain. We're back to Suffokate time. So now we're back to Suffokate time, but we're locked in with Stillborn. They're going to do the re-release of Oakland. And granted, I'm going to go back a little bit. Before the EP actually came out in October 2007 for Legacy of Pain, but on June 15th of 2007, Carlos passed away. So when Carlos passed away, that fucked my mind up, and still fucked my mind up to this day, because that the support, the love, the understanding, he really got it. Like when you can speak to someone and you don't even have to talk, you can just do it from just understanding. Like we could just look at each other and understand it. It was a blessing, and I miss him every single day. And again, RIP to him, because those high vocals were insane. And he said, like, how do I do vocals? And I'm like, everyone's going to have their unique voice. You're not going to sound like me. But I said, just start screaming, and we're at his house, and he's like doing the different tones. And if you know Carlos, he did those highs for Oakland. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave, but just keep doing this. And then call me in a little while and let me know how it goes. So I walk out of his bedroom, and I fake walk down the stairs, but I'm like halfway down and I stop. And like, he thinks I'm gone. So now he's going crazy with these high screams. And I mean, like, he's really getting them those high highs. And he gets to one point, I'm running back up the stairs. And I'm like, that, keep doing that. He's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, bro, like, that's that. And he's like, do I got it? I'm like, yeah. So now I really leave. And he's locked that in. And he was always a big fan of hip hop too, but he also really liked Cradle of Filth. So when you hear his high pitched screams, sure, he was locked into those. Like, he really wanted to hit those highs. And granted, like, I love those highs. I love those highs because my highs sound different than his. But the way when I was doing my lows and to have his highs coming with at the same time, it's a feeling that I can't even explain. And I love him and I miss him, and I wish he was around because he'd make you guys laugh. He'd have some funny stories for you also. So RIP to Carlos. Legacy of Pain is out, and Legacy of Pain comes to an end. And then we got the Suffokate reissue of Oakland because Jamie Josta wanted to release both through the label. And some of this gets into more technical stuff, which I'm going to leave for when you talk to Lars or when you talk to Taylor, because that's their business to talk about. Mm-hmm. But the time came, and for me, it's like, damn, Jared, like, why did you leave? And everyone always wants to know that. So the thing for me is, life's a trip, and you're gonna feel things very, very strongly. And like I said before, you can love something whether it's right in front of your face or 1,000 miles away, but you just have to know what's best for you. And for me at that point, like I said, I was a hothead. My dad had passed away. My best friend had passed away. We're all getting older, so we're all kind of not butting heads more, but everyone's biting back more. Like, we're not understanding each other the same way I felt. And maybe we were, but to me, it didn't feel that way. And we had lost so many guitar players and bassists, and me and Lars were just trucking along. And I thought to myself, you know, if there was ever a time to just break away, now would be the time, because I would hate to be giving anything less than 100, because that's always what I've gave to doing this. So I'm cheating everybody if I continue on and you go see it and Jared's just giving a 50%, because I feel like I'm just doing it just to do it. That's not what music is for. I'm not doing it just to do it. I'm doing it because it's in my heart, and that's what I was feeling. And I never ever stopped creating. I stopped creating with Suffokate, but we'll continue on from there. So I think thinking about it for a long time, things are they were what they were. And one day I decided, you know, I'd already planned to go out to the East Coast, and I was going to be out there. So I'm out there, and I'm like, I'm going to stay in the East Coast. So I'm random too. I'm sporadic, and I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the East Coast. So I go out there. I'm in Utica, New York. It's upstate New York, and snows a lot. It's cold as fuck, and it's hella small. I said, perfect. What a good place to like decompress my mind from all this craziness, because shows were crazy. After the shows were crazy. just regular life stuff was wild. It was also crazy from 2001 up to 2008 that like being in upstate New York in this calm, relaxing place was just super, super chill. And it was really helped me find the person who I needed to become, because I'll be honest, man, I was self-destructive to myself towards the end of the process. Like I said, never did anything too wild, but I was heavy into smoking weed, and that's all good. But I also was heavy into drinking for a little bit, and I was numbing the pain of losing the people who I lost through vices and avenues that were not the best, because everything's fine in moderation if that's your choice, and your choice is your choice, and no one should truly judge you, but you should always judge yourself. And I judge myself, and I'm like, fuck, man, I just need to tap out, because if I get on the road, I'm already a firecracker, and now I'm really just wasn't doing the best. So keep to myself a lot, because you know what I mean, just kept it moving, kept everything focused so much about the band that like me and Taylor would have one-on-one talks, me and Lars one-on-one talk. We talked one-on-one, but as a collective, we didn't have that great communication as like adults should, because we were still so young at those times. So time progresses, and I know I'm gonna go. I'm like, got my ticket to the East Coast, and I feel bad. And again, I'll make the disclaimer here. Like Taylor knows, Lars knows, I never was trying to hurt them. I never was trying to make them sad, but I knew that it was going to hurt them, and I knew it was going to make them sad. And that was one of the hardest things, because even though I found this new peace and it's fine, I still know that two people that relied on me and we had a bond with are now gonna have to figure it out like we were always having to figure it out. And there was a lot of pressure on them, I'm sure. And I'm like, fuck, I didn't know how to go about it. So I'm like, maybe I'll get on the East Coast and I'll want to come back. So I'll wait till I get out there and feel it out. But fuck, I've already had this thought for so long. So I'm out there. I'm on the East Coast. I've been there for like a couple of days. I'm like, how to do this? And I'm like, fuck. I just text Taylor, hey man, I'm no longer going to be the vocalist for Suffokate. You can call me if you want to. You know, I'm sorry if I disappoint you. But that's pretty much that. Sent the same thing to Lars too. Obviously, they weren't happy. Obviously, when you change a dynamic in a family like we were like that, it definitely shook the waters. And there was a good time where I'm sure, I don't think they ever hated me, but I'm sure they were hurt, and I'm sure they had some resentment because, like I said, I've known Taylor since high school. We've done all this music together. We've seen each other develop into what we were, and same with Lars. Like, so it was hard, but we did it. It happened. And then I'm on the East Coast, and obviously I'm still doing my thing. I meet some kids and they're like, bro, we should start a band. So then I got a side project in the East Coast, and I've only been there a month. We're playing shows, people fighting there. It's fun because I just love creating music. But like I said, you can still love things from far away. So I'm still keeping my eye to see what's going on with them. I'm not asking them, hey, what's your guys' next move? Because they're upset. Give things their space. And if it's meant to come back around, it will. And if it's not, you treasure the times you had and you move forward.
It's a good
the
mindset.
Best you can do.
It's a good mindset to have also, because I feel, and not to cut you off because it's super interesting, by the way, but and again, I'm going to speak for the both of us that we really appreciate you, you know, sharing all these, you know, feeling and what you went through and stuff like that. That's clearly the most precious thing we have on in these moments. So like, thank you very much for sharing that. But it's like, I'm guessing for you, like everything was happening at the same time, you know, and you were just kind of trying to figure out, like, for some people from the outside, they're like, why did he do that? Like sometimes it seems like, why, you know what I mean? But like, you're never in the life of the person trying to figure out. You're still a kid trying to like just, you know, figure out this whole thing, and you love music at the same time, and it's like so it's all about difficult decisions and trying to make the best out of it. So I just wanted to add that sometimes it's easy to judge, but you never really know what's going on inside people's life, you know. So just wanted to say that.
No, I agree 100%. And it was so hard because, like with me, I mean, people, I don't know if mysterious is the right word, but I go, I do a show, I do my thing, and then I'd be doing the merch stuff, whatever, and then I would kind of just bounce, and I wouldn't be gone. I would just be away from the general crowd of people. So I'd be like, damn, where did he go? Like, where did he go? And they'd see me do my thing, and then I'd be gone. They're like, what the fuck's up with this guy? So then I'm already kind of like laid back, and like, yeah, it's like the release was so intense too that I kind of needed that as well, because we were really giving it our all. Like I say, man, like really, really giving it our all. So, oh man, so now I'm on the East Coast, and we're doing it. Like I said, watching from afar, and they go on. And I hear they get a new singer, and I'm like, hell yeah, that's sick, because like I said, I don't want them to not be a band.
Yeah.
We've worked all this fucking time. Like, you guys know what to do. I did my thing. We got everything set and going. Like, go to keep doing your thing. Like, always had my blessing, because how could I hate something that I helped create? So then I see it, they get Ricky, and you guys know Ricky's a badass vocalist. Shout out to Ricky, always killing it. He comes in and he's doing his thing, and I know he was on this podcast before, so I'm sure he's updated you with his stories. But he came in and did his thing, and he did it properly. I couldn't have thought of a sicker person to come do it, because he filled the shoes properly, but he still kept it true to himself, and that's what I was always hoping for. I didn't want someone to come in and do me. I wanted someone to come in and honor my songs properly, but still do their thing. And he came in and definitely did that. And the proof's in the 2 albums to follow, because people would always try to, I don't know, pit albums against each other.
Right.
And it's a whole lifespan of Suffokate, because it's not just a voice. So from everything from the beginning up to the end, it's all important. Some people played bigger parts than others, but it's all attached to that Suffokate tree. So he came in and did his thing, put out 2 fire ass albums. And if you listen to Oakland and the 2 other albums all together, just enjoy Suffokate for Suffokate, because that's what it was meant for. But yeah, they were doing their thing, and I see that they're getting on good tours, and like it's really taken off even more and more and more. Like I knew it would, because we were right at the door of that before I left. So it was like, I already know it's around the corner, and it's never one of those things where it's like, that wasn't what I wanted to achieve. But the creation and getting that album out, and having people all over the world before I even had left Oakland being able to reach out and say that they felt Suffokate, or Oakland made an impact to them even back then, was the reward of it. Because I knew that from sitting back in high school, having that thought of like, damn, I want to create something that's different, I was able to make a little piece and do that in my own lane with the people that I was able to work with. So I'm super fortunate from that. But we'll fast forward, man. New York's cold. New York's a cold fucking place. So
Can confirm. Yeah.
had to get back to the West Coast. So bam, back in the West Coast, 2009. And my good friend Tim, like I said, we had a band called the Golden Knife that we were going to start when I got back. So we start the Golden Knife. Then we had a drummer named Sam and a guitar player named Ryan, aka V-Neck, and we did our thing. And then we needed a bassist, so we got our boy Spencer on bass. And RIP to Spencer, he passed away recently also, and he was an incredible person and musician. And yeah, if you know him, one of a kind and an amazing person. So RIP Spencer. Had him on bass, and we're playing shows. Play shows like Ghost Inside and some other sick bands. But Spencer doesn't stay, and then we get my boy Ray, who again is in my new project, Rise and Rebuild, and he's doing bass, and we're playing these shows, Sacramento, doing our thing. And I know everyone's wanting Suffokate, but it's one of those things where it's like, Suffokate. So if you want that, you got to go to that. You can't come to us expecting us to be what's already over there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was that balance thing, because he had his prior band, I had mine, so we kind of did it, but then ended up, I guess, fizzling out, and then just keep creating on I'm always creating just on my own. So it's like, people are like, damn, did you ever stop? And I'm like, no, I never stopped creating. It just depends what is seen in the light and what is kept in a vault. But nonetheless, just always create. Always believe in yourself, and don't care what anyone else thinks. Work with your people. If you're a young band now, communicate with your band. Just try to explain it. because that communication is so key, because things will get lost in translation, and if someone doesn't understand you properly, they're gonna try to figure out what it is for themselves, and that may be completely wrong. So communicate, keep doing it. Deathcore is incredible. It was incredible back then when we didn't know what it was, and it's incredible now with all the great bands that are out doing huge shit, putting out great songs. It's all fucking sick, and I'm proud of it all. And I'm just happy to be a part of that timeline, that lifeline of deathcore in general.
Big part too. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I think Zach from Elisa was telling me about like house party shows type thing, you know, like playing inside someone's house. I don't know if you recall those kinds of shows, but
they were so sick. Like, I love his band, like such a heavy band. So like being able to see them play in a house and like just fucking going crazy, and like so small, and you're worried about people's walls getting holes punched in them, and people say, like, fighting
sure,
in people's kitchens.
Two, yeah.
And he told me the crazy part is he told me the parents were on board with it. Apparently, like it wasn't like, oh, parents are gone, let's like the parents were there. Like I was like, oh my god, I love my parents, but I don't think they would have ever been like, yeah, let's do a big hardcore show, you know. But it's insane, right?
Yeah, and it happened a lot too. Like, there's a place out in Tracy, shout out to a guy named Topher. Like, his mom loved it, and she'd clear out the couches and have you sit up there, and I mean wild shows where you're just like, someone's gonna fly through the front window in like 2 seconds, and you look over, and then his mom is just chilling there having the time of her life, like doesn't care completely all about it, and you're just kind of like, all right, wild, because it's like, whenever there's a show at a house, you always know there's more people out front. You know what I mean? So whatever you see inside the house, there's always more people out front, on the street, down the street. And it was just so much fun to be able to play the small, weird shows, and then be able to play the bigger shows. Like, first super ever big show we ever really did as a band was the Texas Murder Fest. And it had like Dying Fetus and like all these big bands. And I say Dying Fetus because I really wanted to see Dying Fetus. And Dying Fetus driving all the way to Texas from Oakland for one show is probably the worst idea ever. But when Dying Fetus is playing, it's the best idea ever. And to get 6 other guys to be like, yeah, you're right, we should do this. I'm like, we're going to see Dying Fetus, and we're going to play, and we're going to see Dying Fetus, and it's sick. So we drive down there. And there were some crazy things that happened on that trip. And play, got to see Dying Fetus. It was sick. Yeah, I won't get into some of that stuff, but promoters can get crazy sometimes, and you just got to do what you got to do. So we always did what we got to do, and we were all good. So now we come back from Texas, and yeah, man, just so many sick bands. I don't even know where to begin. I guess if you guys have questions, I can answer some questions. That's pretty much my personal timeline.
I have a couple ones, but I'm gonna let you start with.
Yeah, well, I'd be curious for you to maybe touch on, you know, a lot of the songs throughout the discography that you've been a part of were kind of on multiple releases. Like even just the basis of Oakland coming out a second time, like 3-4 years later, you know. It is a pretty wide span of time to be re-releasing an album, and obviously it's to promote it to more people and stuff. But for most bands, I guess a lot of the times you've written more songs since then. You're like probably like maybe even had an album ready to go at that point or whatever. Like I'm curious, I guess, like was there more material than like at that point, let's say like a re-release of Oakland, was there more material already done? And was it weird to re-release an album that was out 4 years ago? Like how'd that all play out? I'm curious because some of those songs were even from the demo before it, right? So it's like multiple layers of like songs coming out multiple times.
It was like, I loved it and I hated it at the same time, because I felt like shout out to Jamie Josta, and I was so grateful for the opportunity, because with Legacy of Pain came the re-release of Oakland, and that all ties into something that they'll explain for you. But yeah, the EP comes out and I'm like, cool, and then I know that the re-release is going to happen, and I'm like, and they're going to put more the other songs on it, and it comes out, and I'm happy that it's all going to be there. But at the same time, we had done the Legacy of Pain stuff, so we've been writing songs for that. Did the EP, we had a bunch of songs for that, but we kind of didn't keep those, and we transitioned them back into Suffokate. And then from there on, it was just like we would jam, but we were just writing that Oakland album still. And for me, also being like creative, like I told you guys, like I need to be creating. It was probably subconsciously driving me crazy because I was probably ready to do a new album 2004. Like I was ready to do it when we did the Legacy of Pain EP in 2006. Like I was like ready, and I wish we would. I wish we would have had more, but at the same time, it was exactly what it was, and we were very good with like not even pushing forward with songs unless everybody agreed that it was like a level 10 song. So like we had some ideas, and like there was definitely some cool shit, but it's like we never got to fully develop it at the end before it transitioned into maybe the stuff that they started doing once Taylor and Lars reconnected, once Taylor had come back and I was already had left to go to the East Coast. But yeah, there was definitely a long span where like 2004 2008 where I was like,
dude, because I mean, because it comes out 2004 the first time, but it's like some songs are on the 2003, and then 2003. Well, it wasn't written 2003, probably. You know, like it's like we're talking like maybe 6 years ago of songs that you've already written that are coming out.
And you
again.
probably feel like you evolved too, right? Like as an artist, a musician, you're like, I have new ideas, I have new things. So like you're kind of. You almost feel like you're holding back, and you're like, I have stuff I want to do now, right? So it's
as a vocalist, things to say, right? Like,
dude,
yeah. You guys are 100% spot on with that. It's what it felt like. It was like we know, and the fans know that these songs are heavy, they're sick, they're tight. But like you said, as an artist, like I'm ready for that next album. I got more to say. I'm an adult now. I'm not young. I'm older than I was, and I got new ideas and new visions and wanting to continue creating how we were, but everything does pan out the way it was. So I just took it as being grateful for what it was, for the time that I got to spend with it. And then once Taylor came back, they kind of re-evolved their sound into what you guys heard for the second two albums after that.
Yeah, the question I have is more like it's a past and present question, I guess, but you're still doing music, still doing vocals, guitar, stuff like that. What would be the biggest difference in approaching, let's talk about vocals more specifically, but like when you write vocals, when you record vocals and stuff like that, what would you say is the biggest difference between now and then? Like, you know, like I know you were young, you know, super young when you did that, but like, do you find yourself kind of feeling the same way sometimes? It's completely different. I'm curious.
For me, it's like how I was saying, it's like opening up a channel. It always feels the same from the first time I yelled in my room until the time I yelled with Suffokate, Legacy of Pain, On a Warpath, The Golden Knife, all the way up to Buried in Destruction. As soon as that certain feeling aligns with the inside and the universe, I'm able to just tap into that zone, and I can just like kind of like not turn it on like a switch, but I can kind of like get myself warmed up to it and just jump into it, because it's just like what I don't know, it's like what I do. I can't it definitely feels exactly the same as it did when I was younger. It's more, I can fine tune it better. Like I'm not screaming as hard as I used to, because I used to not blow out my voice, but scream so hard I thought I would blow out my voice, because I didn't realize I can control my power. But then once I did, it was way easier now. And just of course doing it in sections, because like I said in Oakland, I just did it straight through. It's like now it's super cool to do everything in section and be like, damn, I can catch a breath in between and really just knock it out. But I love it.
Nail the parts, you know, more specifically. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, but I guess you're still tapping into that same thing. Like that's what it kind of comes back to. Like you can tap into that same inspo or energy that you've been tapping into since the beginning, I guess.
Definitely.
Sorry.
Oh no, what were you gonna say?
I was about to say, because we talked a little bit, like you saw my page, right? Like I'm very open about always talking about Mitch, and he's still the GOAT and everything. Like I always bring up Mitch Lucker and stuff like that. When you first saw him performing, like did you get inspired kind of instantly in terms of like performance and capturing things, or was it just like, oh, he's amazing? Like, did he actually inspire you to be like, oh my god, what is that? You know, like I'm just curious
It's
about
like
that.
the first time I ever, like I said, we were talking to him on MySpace and stuff because we'd all kind of different bands would communicate through MySpace. So we'd be like, oh, stoked to see you guys, stoked to see you guys. So like I had talked to him, and then when I finally see him live, it definitely was a bar that even back then you can tell they had set so fucking high because like everyone would come on a show and give 100, and then Suicide Silence comes on there and they give it 200, and you're like, holy fucking Mitch is just doing his thing from back then to now. Same with Chris too. They got that magic in him, and they still had it back then because like I said, I'd be in the pit just fucking people up when they're playing because he has those highs that make you go want to murder somebody. It's like insane. Like, man, such a great band, such a great time, and I'm so happy I was able to see them when they were small, and then even with the newer lineup they had before he had passed away, I got to go down to SoCal and link up with them and say what's up and see him play a big old fest down there. And then just even when I lived on the East Coast, they played in Syracuse, and I drove down and saw them with Bury Your Dead. Like I'd still always go through and see them whenever the deathcore bands would come anywhere that I was, because I still always loved it. But Mitch's vocals are just phenomenal, and it definitely set a bar to where like I knew like you just gotta keep doing your thing as hard as you fucking can, because he's doing his thing. You had Craig and Eddie doing their thing for All Shot Parish. You had Animosity doing their thing. Winds of Plague, all these fucking sick bands. And I say Winds of Plague because I love Winds of Plague a lot. Shout out to Johnny. Such a fucking sick band. Love that band.
Cool person.
That was the thing back then. Everyone was going like 110%, right? Like that was just, I think, part of, I guess what made it heavy, like what made it so special. I think maybe we didn't realize it as much back then. It was just like every band went crazy. So it was just kind of, I guess, the norm, right? But I definitely, looking back on it, I think it was special because I don't think I think people take that aspect of it for granted a little bit more. I don't think most bands necessarily go off in the same way as they used to, at least in deathcore specifically. I know it's different for different genres, but it was just an expectation back then that, you know, you played this kind of music, you were going to go balls to the wall no matter what, right?
You had to, because it was so new too that it's like you really had to impress those people who were still kind of new to what this new sound was, because some people would hear it and they love it instantly, and sometimes like you'll hear a band and you first may not really feel it, but then you listen to it some more, and then before you know it, you're like, I fucking love this band, and it kind of just grows on you. And that was also fun to see because like back in the day, like I remember we'd play shows and like nobody would dance, and we're dropping double breakdowns and like nobody's moving, and we're sitting there like, what the fuck? But then you go the next weekend and you do the same thing, and now everybody's going fucking crazy. And it was just all planting those seeds, and it was done by all the OG deathcore bands that planted those seeds to where people would start accepting like these different style of heavy music, but still like let us come play hardcore shows or let us play metal shows, because to a lot of us we didn't know deathcore was deathcore, so we were just kind of like a stranger band on like a hardcore show or like a more interesting band on another bill. So it was really cool when all the other bands started to come out, because then we could kind of play more shows with similar kind of sounding music. But so many sick bands, so many great bands and great people and a lot of talent back then and up to now.
Were you guys accepted in the hardcore scene?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the older guys like that we kind of looked up to, they ask questions like ask about getting on shows, how to go about doing stuff, and we would say the hardcore scene embraced us because that's where we were playing like first in the Bay Area. When we went to Southern California, it was kind of a blend of like the hardcore, metalcore, and whatever deathcore was becoming down there. So they were kind of more understanding it to a larger caliber than it was up here at first. So that was really cool to go down there, because it's like go play the showcase and everybody fucking gets it. Everybody wants to get the merch. Everybody does that. But then again, it comes down to sometimes your hometown bands don't get shown the love until they're hitting.
most
You know
of
what
the
I
time.
mean? Because
Honestly,
we had
so
all of
weird how
our
that works. Yeah.
our close friends are repping. Like Marco will tell you, he'd be like, "Shit, I've been there since 2001." But then some people don't catch on till way later on. But moral of the story is just do your thing and enjoy it, and yeah, just enjoy it and have fun with it, because I definitely did, and it's exciting to see all the new bands that are out now, and it's also exciting to see like what you guys are doing and helping to spread the knowledge from new and old to everybody. So again, big shout out to you guys.
Thanks. Actually, it all started when I wanted to document the MySpace era. Basically, I was looking on YouTube and I was like, why is no one talking about what Suicide Silence did, or like what Veil of Maya, all those bands? Like, I want to know what happened, and especially with bands like Suffokate, with bands like, you know what I mean, that was like We Are the End, bands like that were like crucial, but maybe not at Slipknot level or something that we need to talk about. And ever since then, I started that, and people latched on, and even younger people to our surprise, because we thought it would be only people our age and people from the MySpace days, that would understand. But even now, you see these kids, being attracted to it, and then the podcast came along and everything, and it just feels right. It just feels like it's important to credit people and to honor people because that's a fact. Like, we wouldn't have those crazy big bands doing it now if it wasn't for people like you and people building it in before. So, and I firmly believe that it's important, and people are interested by those things. Even very young people, they love knowing about that stuff. So we're both doing it. I guess what I'm trying to say is we're both doing it simply because we love doing it, and we feel like it's important to put a spotlight on it. But it's an honor also, we're having a blast.
But dude, we were talking about this a little bit before we jumped into the stream behind the scenes, but like, it really is like everything that you've shared with us, basically, like most of everything that you just shared with us, you cannot find online, right? Like, there's no other way of getting this sort of information. So that's to me, I mean, one of the coolest things through doing this, because there's only so much. Like, we use websites to go back on old MySpace, Wayback Machine, like go back on the old websites, and you can kind of see images and maybe some of the blogs and stuff, but it never, there's so much missing, and it never fully like paints the full picture, right? So really
Definitely
do appreciate it.
Privileged,
Yeah, and especially taking the time to like do the timeline and to like put some thought into it, and to really like be as precise as you were with all this stuff. That, dude, like, I'm hardcore nerding out right now. This is we really appreciate.
I think it's fair to say it's the first time to me at the very least. Like, we had amazing guests. Don't get me wrong. Like, I had the blast the whole time we were doing that. But it's the first time that it feels like it's just we were sitting back and listening to a story, and you have and Jared, honestly, you have good storytelling skills. Like, it's very interesting. It's fun. Like, I feel seriously like it was well constructed. I could feel like the passion and the real emotion behind it. It was just like I was the whole time I was just like enjoying it and sitting back and correct me, dumb, if I'm wrong, but it's the first time that it's that well constructed, and just so thank you for that.
For context, people listening already know, but we're good on going off on tangents and derailing these episodes ourselves. So this was one of the more structured ones for sure. So we do appreciate.
Yep.
No, you guys are both incredible, and like I was already seeing you guys beforehand. So when we first started talking and you had invited me to come on, I was beyond excited, because you guys do such a great job of doing this that I definitely wanted to come through with the proper notes, push the day back a little bit, and really get that timeline for you guys, for the listeners in the chat, for myself, all my close people, all the fans, and just for that timeline of deathcore in general, because I know your guys' legacy is going to continue on for a very, very long time. And I know you guys are going to do a bunch of great things. So I look forward to keep watching and seeing all the other guests. Tapping with Lars, tapping with Taylor, tapping with Chris Story. I know all those guys would love to come and talk with you guys, and they probably have some awesome stories as well.
That's the interesting part, by the way. Like the thing we love, like we had in the past different members from the same band, and it's a complete different experience. As much as like some of the things, obviously we kind of were connecting the dots, but each experience and memory, it's always different. It's always a different perspective, different way of seeing things, and it's and also just from an artist perspective, right? It's not the same thing to be a freaking drummer or vocalist. Like it's all these things, you know, are piecing together. So that's what we love about doing this. But especially more than anything, knowing you as a person, you know, when we do that, that's the most, like you were talking about what you went through and how you felt and stuff like that. It's something that when we have those information and then we listen to the music, it feels more rich. It feels like we have more context. It's a different experience, you know. So yeah, that's what we love about doing it the most, I think.
I'm super happy to have been able to be a part of it with you guys on here tonight.
You killed it, man. Seriously. Like
thank you so much, man, for taking the time and for doing this with us. We'll have to keep in touch either way, but I guess before we let you go, I'd love to leave you, kind of give you the floor to maybe talk about, we earlier talked about some of the newer stuff you've got going on, but if there's anything you want to shout out in terms of new bands or anything that's coming, would love to let the people know.
Again, thank you to everybody, you guys, everybody who listened, and everyone who's ever supported. Also, thank you to my girlfriend too for putting up with me. And with the shout out, you can follow me on Instagram at @thisjared, follow Buried in Destruction at Buried in Destruction, and follow Rise and Rebuild at Rise and Rebuild. I'll have info posted about all the stuff going on with the different projects there. But just be safe, and thank you guys all for listening. And who knows, maybe you'll have me back on again and we can deep dive into some other stuff. But I appreciate you guys both. Thank you again.
I was about to say it, dude. It would be awesome to have you back, you know, and talk about other stuff. And you work so hard on so many things that I'm sure we're gonna have plenty of, to talk about music and stuff like that. So, and we're gonna keep in touch. You know, like you and me, we've been talking and stuff, and I'm really enjoying it. So definitely, you know, we're gonna keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, guys, I appreciate you both, and I hope you guys have a good night.
You too, man. Thank you so much.
Man.
Have a good
Take
night,
care, buddy.